Good afternoon. We are live at the City Council chambers of the City Hall of the City of DeRidder, visiting today with the Honorable Mayor of the city, Mr. Ron Roberts. My name is Rick Barnacle. I'm with West Central Broadcasting, and I'd like to visit with the mayor about something that's coming up on the ballot for the citizens of DeRidder on April the 2nd, a 1% tax proposition to replace an expiring tax. Mr. Mayor, I understand there's been some misinformation floating around as to what this tax will do, and let's dispel some of those rumors.
Well, there has been some misinformation, Rick. Somehow the story has gotten out that this is a new tax and that taxes are going up, and that's absolutely false. We have a tax that is expiring, and this tax will replace that one. The tax that is expiring is 1%. This is a 1% tax. So in fact, the taxes to the citizens of DeRidder are going to stay absolutely the same. And if this replacement tax is voted in, we will be able to continue services at the current level.
Now, this tax has been in effect since 1991, and it provides quite a good portion of the sales tax revenue for the city. Sales taxes constitute some 57% of your total revenue, and this again is not an increase. It is simply replacing the expiring tax.
That's right, Rick. The sales taxes are 57% of our total budget, and this tax is 44% of our sales taxes. So in essence, this tax is 25% of the city budget. So you can imagine that if this tax does not pass, we're going to have an across-the-board 25% cut in the services that we provide.
And some of the things that people are saying or thinking is that this is actually going to be an increase in the sales tax, and that is not true. The sales tax will remain exactly where it is.
That's right. Sales taxes, total sales taxes in the city of DeRidder are 8.75%. But of that 8.75%, the city receives 2.25%. And the remainder of that goes to the police jury, some of it goes to the school board, some of it goes to the sheriff's office. But the word has gotten out there somehow that the total tax is going from 8.75% to 9.75%, and that is absolutely false. The taxes are not going to increase.
Break down that percentage of that city, the sales tax that the city receives. How is that broken down?
Well, the city really has three taxes. We have two taxes that are 1%, and we have one tax that is 0.25%. So that makes up our 2.25%. Now, one of the 1% sales taxes does not expire. It was passed in 1963, and it is indefinite. The other 1% tax, which is the one that was passed in 1991, expires this year because it was a 20-year tax. And then the 0.25% tax was passed in the year 2004, and that tax is dedicated to the police and fire departments. And I might add, it enabled us recently to purchase a new fire truck. And for all of the citizens living in DeRidder, your fire rating has improved from a 4 to a 3. And if you haven't checked your homeowner's insurance, you should check with your insurance agent, because your homeowner's insurance this year should go down because of the improvement in the fire rating. But even with that 0.25% dedicated to fire and police, that tax brings in $600,000. The cost of operating the fire department and the police department is about $3.7 million. So that tax brings in about 1/4 of what we need. So the remainder of that money comes from these other two 1% taxes. So in effect, if this tax does not pass and does not replace the tax that is expiring, then we're going to have a great deal of difficulty providing fire protection and police protection.
Talk about some of the other taxes that are levied here that also come back into the city. Let's talk about property, occupational license, franchise taxes.
Well, the property tax, which is often referred to as ad valorem tax, actually only constitutes about 10% or produces 10% of what the sales tax produces. So the property tax is really insignificant when compared to the sales tax. Also, the occupational licenses, which is another form of taxing, it produces 10% of what the sales tax produces. And then we have franchise taxes where we are paid, for example, by the cable company. But the franchise taxes, again, are about 10% of the sales tax. So if you take those three together, they don't begin to do for us what the sales tax does. So it's the sales tax that is the essential tax. It's the important one that we must have.
So when you add the sales tax and the other taxes, you're generating, along with water and sewer bills, the city's total revenue.
The city's total revenue. Our budget is $10 million, and that's just about the amount of revenue that we generate. Although I would like to add that for the last 3 years, we have operated on the same budget. We have not increased our budget at all. We're trying to be as conservative as we can.
Now, you referred to this earlier as a replacement and not a renewal, and this is strictly a matter of semantics here.
It is a matter of semantics. It wasn't until February 14th of this year that the State Bonding Commission clarified what we in fact could call it. They had told us that we could not call it a renewal. They had told us it was acceptable to call it a replacement. They have now issued a memorandum which says if we would like, we could call it a rededication.
And basically what that is that you are prohibited by law from changing a single word in this tax proposition. So you've got to call it what it is.
That's exactly right.
It is a replacement. Now tell me what you did that caused you to have to make
We could have
this term.
called this a tax renewal if we had left the language exactly like it was 20 years ago. But there were some things in the proposition that we no longer address. For example, in the tax proposition as it was passed in 1991, it said that a portion of this money would go for supporting the city court. We no longer have a city court. When the second district court was created, the city court went by the wayside. Also, in the proposition from 1991, it said that a portion of this money would go into our food stamp program. The city of DeRidder no longer has a food stamp program. There is a food stamp program, but we no longer administer it. And the other thing that we changed, the money is dedicated to exactly the same things. The money is dedicated to improving our roads, our sidewalks. It's dedicated to garbage collection. It's dedicated to city utilities, sewer. Part of it, again, is dedicated to police and fire protection. We haven't changed what it goes toward. But in the original proposition from 1991, this 1% was broken down. And of the 1%, 41% went over here, 55% went over here, and 4% went over here. And what happened is that we found that we were accumulating reserves in certain accounts, but we had no reserves in others. So on the advice of our bonding attorney, we took those percentages out. For example, we have a fair amount of money accumulated in our street fund. We have the money to go out and resurface the streets that need resurfacing. We have no reserves whatsoever for example, recreation or garbage collection. So we are trying to give the council, the city, the administration some flexibility in budgeting so that if there is something that needs to be done in the city and we have money sitting over here, we can take it and apply it to our needs.
Now, I know that you're fairly confident that the last 2 years have been banner years for the city of DeRidder financially. Is this city healthy with its finances?
The city is healthy, and I think will continue to be healthy so long as this tax passes. The year 2009 was the largest revenue year in the history of the city. The year 2010, it was down 1%. 2010 was the second largest revenue year that we've ever had. We also, we have very little debt. In 1999, the city's debt was 40% of its annual budget. Today, the city's debt is less than 4% of the annual budget. So we have very little debt, and we will in fact pay that off this year.
And those cash reserves that you talked about are continuing to grow.
The cash reserves are continuing to grow, and we have good cash reserves, but here is our problem, and this is what I'd like for our citizens to understand. If this tax does not pass, and if we try to maintain services at their current level, we will go through our reserves in 2 years. And that would be a very bad thing.
Indeed, indeed. So bottom line is that the voters need to step up and make sure that the city has this source of funding that comes into the city to do the things that you guys want to do.
That's exactly it, Rick. And if the citizens will do this and replace the expiring tax, we will continue to be healthy financially, and that's a good thing for everyone.
Indeed. Mayor Ron Roberts, City of DeRidder, our guest today, and we thank you for taking the time out to explain this a little better in depth for our citizens.
Thank you, Rick. We appreciate your asking the question.